See a fan. See how much hot air I'm putting out. Shabbat Shalom. What does the Hebrew word mitzvah mean? Responsibility-ish. It is within the classic Yiddish and Eastern European usage. The word mitzvah has very much come to mean almost a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout level of good deed, responsibility. The helping the old lady across the street, the picking up litter. This is something that is good for a person to do. But what is a more, perhaps, original or literal interpretation? Because the word mitzvah is not only found in Yiddish or in American Jewish slang, but it is a perfectly fine modern Hebrew word as well. It's an order. It's a command. Right? When we talk about the commandments in Judaism, those are the mitzvot. And some of them indeed seem very clearly like, be a good person. This week we remind ourselves to return lost items to those that have lost them. Very much the Boy Scout kind of do a good deed sort of mitzvah. Others of them seem a little bit less to fall into that category. Don't wear mixed wool and linen fabrics. A little hard to find that in the Boy Scout handbook. How do you get your badge for that? And others can seem even more, maybe we don't want to talk about that. For example, the concept of divorce. Divorce is a mitzvah. It doesn't mean that you are commanded to divorce your spouse, God forbid, but it means that when divorce is necessary, there is a set of commandments of how it should be handled. But that phrase, when it is necessary, that gets a lot of attention in rabbinic literature. Because, well, the rabbis talk about everything. So, when is divorce necessary? Well, the Torah itself gives us a hint. It says that when there is an ervat davar, when there is a sexual thing, would be a way to translate it. And indeed, this is the way that Beit Shammai, one of the two great academies in the early days of the pre- and post-Second Temple days, they said, it says ervat davar, it says this sexual thing, emphasizing the word sexual, therefore divorce should only happen if there is an issue of infidelity, whether it be unprovable adultery or merely suspected adultery. That and only that, Beit Shammai, this academy argued, can trigger a divorce. When in absence of anything like that, sorry, you are stuck together. Beit Hillel, who were their natural adversaries in almost every debate, Beit Hillel said, no. You're emphasizing the ervat, the erva of the ervat davar. But what about the davar? Because if the Torah had come to say you can only get divorced because of some sexual infidelity, oops, excuse me, my mask is popping off at the conversation. If the Torah had wanted us to know that, it wouldn't have said ervat davar, it would have just said erva. It would have just used the first word, meaning the sexual issue, and not added on an additional noun of davar, and that word meaning thing. So therefore, Beit Hillel says, it can be because there is an erva, there is this issue, but it could also be because it's just a davar, it's just a thing. Perhaps someone burnt the food, and that has now triggered the need for a divorce. If you are to say that only for a certain level of transgression in the relationship that a divorce is allowed, then you will be trapping people together who don't want to be together, merely because their level of antagonism has not led to a much larger breach in the relationship. Beit Hillel wins this argument. Beit Hillel eventually is able to persuade the community that indeed the bar is very low. What is now probably referred to in most states as irreconcilable differences. Right? No fault. You don't have to say there was a particular act that triggered this, that was abuse, or that was infidelity. Just, I don't like the way he makes the bed. I don't like the way she drives. That's fine. Fine. Fill out the forms. You're divorced. It's just that easy. Rarely that easy. But legally, it is enough to begin the proceeding. So does that mean then that in Judaism, because we lowered the bar so far down during the times of Beit Hillel, that people flocked to get divorced? Of course not. Because the vast majority of the people had been in the relationship they wished to be in, and recognized that to maintain the relationship, you wouldn't leave just because you didn't like the way the bed was made. You wouldn't leave just because you didn't like the way the eggs were cooked. The only reason you would leave for something like that is if there was a lot else wrong between you and your spouse. Then, yes, I thought I could put up with it, but when even the egg started getting burnt, now I knew it was too much and I had to leave. And on the other hand, if you are willing to dissolve a relationship that you have said you would be committed to merely and only because of the condition of the eggs, your spouse probably doesn't want to spend the rest of their life with you either. Because that is indicating a certain shallowness, a certain selfishness in how you approach the give and take of any relationship. As we are going through the continuing effects of the COVID pandemic, one of the things that sociologists are watching very, very carefully are the rates of divorce. In the initial days of the pandemic, there was a drop-off in divorce. During the close down, the shutdowns, and this happened not only in our country, but in other countries as well. Mostly because most people did not want to get divorced and go out onto their own into a scary world where they would know what's coming next. It was much easier to stay with the person you were with. But as that time has gone on, more people have begun to understand that there are incompatibilities between them and their spouse, that being together more hours in a day than they were used to are beginning to show, and beginning to reveal that far from rekindling the passion or devotion they had to each other, it is revealing the flaws in the relationship that they had perhaps been ignoring. And so now we are seeing an uptick in divorces as people are beginning to feel safer about leaving where they are unhappy. So too, sadly, we are also seeing an uptick in many abuse cases, as people who are spending time with each other more and more often have more occasion to do harm to one another and fewer places to retreat away from such abuse. This is not to say that Judaism agrees that divorce should be a casual activity. Just like going into a relationship, which is a mitzvah, leaving a relationship should be done with seriousness and careful consideration of all the implications. But we are blessed in our faith to recognize that even like Shir HaShirim, we remind ourselves of the joy of being together with the right person. We also recognize the tragedy of being with the wrong person, or the person who is no longer right for us. And by allowing divorce to happen when the couple decides it is appropriate, Judaism has freed us to be able to be the people we want to be. Provided, of course, you make sure you are very, very diligent in maintaining the relationship. Do not consider it to be only a one-way street, and seek all other avenues for reconciliation before needing to dissolve the union. But divorce can indeed